Editor Nuair here. Just want to give you guys a quick heads up here. This video is actually 2 parts. The interview was about an hour long, so I wanted to break it up into about 2 pieces here so you're not sitting for too long listening to this. But, you know, if you're missing anything or if you feel like there's context missing, just check out part 1, which is currently this video. And then I will see you in part 2. Welcome back to Chocolate Espresso Podcast. I am your host, Thomas, formerly known as Nuair. Today, I have a very close friend of mine, Riley Sefker. Go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know what it is.
Thank you for having me up here, Thomas. Like you said, my name is Riley Sefker. I own a construction company with my best friend, Chris Monk. And the name of that company is RC Solutions. And so we just wanted to come up today and put y'all on to a little bit of construction knowledge and talk about our process with Thomas.
Part of the things that we want to do here on the podcast is kind of showcase different career fields and opportunities that youth can get into, especially now more than ever, especially in the skill trade or, you know, just contracting business, because it's a dying industry, and not in the way that no one wants them. It's just that no one's going into it. We don't have enough, especially here in the larger cities. And I think essentially the goal would be just having more bodies. You know, the more help we get, the better. And, you know, I want to ask a couple of questions here to try to get into the nitty-gritty about the industry, the career, and the business aspect of what you do. So, you know, hopefully it's not too complicated. Hopefully it's kind of smooth and, you know, pretty easy questions. And try to keep in mind there might be some youth that see this. So nothing too overwhelming, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So what do you do for work?
We do a lot of different things. So Chris and I started our business just with the intention of trying to pay for our truck. And we did that on our first job. Ever since, we've just been trying to learn. And so we don't have a specified field of work that we do. We like to take on as much work and as much variety as we can. It's important for us not to prioritize profit. And we think that's a long-term investment in ourselves to prioritize learning and building skills. And we just see in the long term that that's going to pay off so much more than prioritizing profits right away.
Okay. Is there a degree required? And if so, you know, what kind of activities do you actively use for it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my family is kind of like there's history of carpentry in my family. And so getting out of school, I thought I wanted to be a carpenter. And I actually went to St. Paul College for their carpentry program. And I was going to school at St. Paul College, learning in the books. A couple times a week, we would go on the job. And then in the evenings and the days that I wasn't in school, I was actually working for a remodeling company. And in that company, it was just myself and a master carpenter, my boss. So eventually I realized that, you know, when I'm going to school, I'm paying money to be there. And I'm in a classroom full of many students, maybe 30 students, and there's one teacher. So there's really just not that much time that I'm one-on-one, you know, getting that experience. There's a lot of time in the book. And while that is valuable, there's nothing like swinging a hammer, you know, to learn how to do carpentry. And then on the other side of it, I would go to work and I'd be getting paid to be one-on-one with a master carpenter. And it didn't take very long for me to realize, why would I pay to be in a learning environment that's, you know, reducing my capability to learn when I can get paid to be one-on-one and really absorb all that information at a much higher level. And so it just, you know, I dropped out of college and started my own business. And really, like, if you pay attention to a lot of billionaires, that's a common story. A lot of people have stories like that where they drop out of school, carve their own path, and turn out to be very successful individuals. That's not saying that college is a bad place. It's definitely very advantageous to help you to learn how to get in a rhythm, to help you learn how to learn. But yeah, there's nothing like getting your hands dirty and actually getting out there and getting into it.
You've heard me say it for years. Why would I pay to learn something when I can get paid to learn?
Right.
You know, that's the whole point, and that's the goal. Save money, get paid. So what's your work dynamic amongst your peers?
Well, I work with my best friend, and so it's a unique situation. It definitely makes it harder to maintain a healthy friendship if you're working with that person the whole time. You gotta be very intentional. I think the number one thing just like any relationship that you have, it comes down to communication. So if you sit down with your coworkers and you set some foundational truths that you have in common, and really analyze, like on our first job, Chris and I had a little argument in between our customer, and it was really unprofessional. So after that happened, we sat down together and we said, it's inevitable. We're going to have differences. We're going to see things differently. And while you and I are perfectly comfortable having pretty intense arguments with each other because we've had this friendship for so long, in the eyes of a customer, that looks really bad. And what we ended up concluding, because we don't really have one person that knows more than the other generally, but we do have specified fields where we know one thing better than the other. And so what we came down to is, if this is a structural issue and we're in front of a customer and a decision needs to be made, my partner is more critical thinking in that aspect. He makes high quality decisions there, and I entrust him to make that decision, even if I disagree. Whereas I think I have a real eye for aesthetics and for listening to the customer and trying to make things look the way that they want. So when there's a design decision and when it needs to be made right there, the customer is there, I'm going to make that decision. And so going back to your question, the dynamic is very healthy. And I think that's because we sat down and we had communication about some foundational aspects, some foundational truths that we can both agree on. And as long as you're able to have those discussions, it doesn't matter where you're working. If you have coworkers and there's ever a problem that you can foresee, you want to sit down and try and get to, like, what is that problem? How can we get on the same level before that comes up again? And that's an immensely powerful tool in all relationships, just to not have problems.
Has your past work experience helped you with your current employment?
Absolutely. My first job was a car wash, and I learned very quickly that I did not like that. The people were taking advantage of us. We would have to come in sometimes when it was raining, and they would make us sit in the basement unpaid, and they wouldn't let us go home. And it's funny because they had as employers are required, they have to post the laws in the break room, and it says right there that they're not allowed to do that. So I realized this company doesn't care for me. I moved on and got a job at a hardware store, and that was a very good experience for me, just to learn about different tools, about different products. Just sitting down in a hardware store and reading the labels on products, you learn so much about chemistry and like engineering, and it's ridiculous how much you can learn. Like, that's a real textbook. Just go to Menards and look at the back of the can, and all of a sudden you know how to paint, you know how to do drywall. They literally lay everything out for you. After that, I worked with a couple different remodeling companies. And so, yeah, I had a really smooth trajectory that kind of escalated in my responsibilities every time I moved. And every time I quit my job, the job I entered made more money. I don't know, have you ever had that experience? That I feel like the generation before us, they were instilled with this value that, be loyal to the people that you're working for, and they're going to reap those rewards in the future. But the company do reap those rewards, and it seems like most of the time they're not giving back to the people. Have you ever left a job and found it advantageous, like you got paid more after?
It's a little weird. So, when I was at my youngest, my first job, I made $11.25, $11.50. Mm-hmm. And then I worked at a nonprofit, and you all know how that's going to go. I ended up dropping down and paid to like $7.25. Mm-hmm. And then the next job was like $15.20, $15.50. Yeah. And then it's just been up and up and up ever since. So kind of, but I would also say some of my best days and fondest memories were at that nonprofit. Not because it was just a nonprofit, but because I helped a lot in the community and I met a lot of people. And through that nonprofit, I was able to network and find my current employer. So I do agree with you, though, especially when you move around to different jobs, always try to go up. And if you're going to go down, make sure it's for your own mental benefit, So, if you can give back. But, I do agree. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It only works if you are delivering high quality work. Mm-hmm. But if you are, you can use your employment as a tool for leverage and say, you know what, I'm not getting what I need, and so I'm going to leave. And if you're delivering, if you're solving problems for a company, they're going to want to retain you. And all of a sudden you have a lot of leverage in order to make more money. And so I think it's highly advantageous to Don't get locked down with the company. They're going to try and make you feel like family, but at the end of the day, we're all here to make money. And it's in your best interest to make more money living in America, living anywhere in the world, really. So I think it's immensely important just to always keep those options open, always be building your network, and don't be afraid to leave it and look for other opportunities.
Absolutely. Do you find it difficult balancing your work and life between the two of them? You know, how does that look for you?
Yes. Owning your own business, one of the biggest challenges is that you don't get to clock out. If there's a problem, someone's going to be calling you, regardless of what time it is, regardless of what you want to be doing. It can be very challenging to put up a boundary and have time for yourself. And that's just one of the things that comes with owning your own business. With that, you get the opportunity to make your own schedule and timelines, and you have a lot of control. And so there's a plus side. But especially owning your own business, it's very challenging to separate that work-life balance.
What is something you use to increase your productivity during your workday?
I would say caffeine.
just straight coffee, huh?
Caffeine definitely helps me to get things done. You got to balance it out, take some days off maybe when you're not working. But honestly, I'm a lot more productive. It also, caffeine has that effect to make you less hungry. So then you don't got to stop for lunch. But you know, you got to be intentional to make sure it's sustainable. But yeah.
Interestingly enough, I had my sister on here, and you know, she works in an office-like setting. So for her, it was taking a walk and looking at some of the monuments around the Capitol and stuff like that. It's really fascinating. That's one of my favorite questions, and almost every person that I've had interviewed always clicks on that question and says, "No, I have something I do, or other things that I can utilize in the office space or around it that keeps me kind of focused and." In here, you know, and I think it's really important, especially in this industry, that you are focused when you're working. I mean, you gotta stay focused. You gotta stay safe. And, you know, even some of the most minuscule things that you can do could be very dangerous if you're not paying attention. I mean, swinging a hammer, and even with the tools that you could use that keeps your fingers away from the nail, you're not paying attention. You miss the nail and you go further towards your hand. That's your hand, you know, and that's your moneymaker. Just like your eyes and your ears and your nose. I mean, you need those parts, you know, it's very important. And could you do without some of those things? Absolutely. But does it render a lot of your ability and your accessibility? Absolutely. So, you know, that is very important too. So kind of want to add that there.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. I mean, I like what your sister says too, taking a break, getting some fresh air, getting a walk, whatever makes you, you know, the best version of you is what you got to do.
How do you feel about a dress code? You know, if you had somebody that, let's say, had highlighter hair or, you know, leggings on the job site, things of that nature, do you have a dress code? How do you feel about that?
Not really. I really don't care about your hair color, but it becomes a safety issue for construction. You know, if you have long hair, you definitely want to tie that up. You don't want to be wearing very baggy clothes. It's a good idea to have some hard toe boots, as well as pants instead of shorts, long sleeves instead of short sleeves. And then it is definitely advantageous if you look professional and if you have a good, clean logo, it really adds to the value of your work and the trust that you're able to build with the customer. And so anyone that's going out and doing their own work, I definitely recommend, you know, pay attention to your attire and how you look, because when you're going up to meet someone for the first time, that's the first thing they see. That's the first thing that they use to start to create a mental image of who is this person. And, you know, you can get by on looks and charisma for a long time, even if your work is subpar, honestly, just by maintaining trust, set the person's expectations accurate. If you're new, you can tell someone, hey, I'm new. But if you look the part, they're going to trust you. And as long as you follow through, they're going to refer you and your business is going to boom.
You know, you guys don't see it, but he has his own merch too. I've seen him walking around town in that RC Solutions shirt and sweater. You know what I'm saying? Hey, chocolate espresso merch coming soon, you know.
I'm going to tap in.
You know, if this was like a week from now, I would have had a sweater. Just saying. Another good question for you. So does your company offer benefits? Do you get benefits? I mean, as an owner, are you also considered an employee in that aspect? Like, how does that work?
It depends on who's asking, really. It's really challenging to afford benefits being self-employed. Right now, I don't have any health insurance, any retirement, anything like that. And so that's something that's tricky when you're self-employed. It's very challenging to get those benefits. You're probably going to get much better benefits working with a larger company. Before I started mine, I was working in the Carpenters Union down here in St. Paul, and they have exceptional benefits. Anyone looking to get into carpentry, I would certainly recommend the union is a great path to get going. Even if you stay there for your whole career, it's a good place to be. They're going to take care of you. And that's definitely something that you got to look at as a carpenter, as a tradesman, is your benefits and longevity and what works. But what I like about having my own business is the money that I make, I get to decide exactly how much I want to put into retirement, exactly how much I want to put here and there. And I really appreciate that flexibility. But I wish I had an opportunity to have better health insurance options for myself. It's kind of challenging, when you're low income, you have opportunities. When you're high income, maybe you can afford it. But that middle ground, when the benefits from the state really start to fall off, it's almost like they're trying to trap you. Like, it's really hard to escape and get out into that next level where you can really afford quality care. And honestly, I think that's one of the things that, like, systematically in this country, we can do to enable entrepreneurs the most is if we have healthcare that's accessible for everybody, that removes an expense on entrepreneurs and on small businesses that now they have one less thing to worry about. They can put more attention into their business, and they know that their employees and their people are going to be covered.
I didn't think we were going to talk about the middle class today. What kind of outreach and advertisements do you conduct?
Absolutely none.
Talk about it, man. Talk about it.
There is so much work. This goes back to what you were saying earlier. I liked how you said that this is a dying industry, because that's the perspective that people seem to have, but it's really not true. I mean, there's always work to be done. So many of the buildings in America were built, after the Second World War. They started making all these houses in the 50s, 60s, 70s. And they made them out of wood. A lot of those things really need to be repaired, and there's less and less people going into that. So if you just look at supply and demand, there's more and more places that need to be repaired. There's less and less people going into it, which means this is really a prime opportunity. I know a lot of guys that are charging $100 an hour for work, and it's not specialized. I mean, if you just want to get out there, you can start doing raw labor or painting or yard work. There are real opportunities if you want to work to get out there and make some money, because there's just not as many people that want to do that hard work. And there's more and more people that need that hard work done. So there's lots of opportunities out here, to the point I've never had to advertise. I've got so much work just coming my way through referrals that it really doesn't make sense for me to put money in that place.
Absolutely. And there's two things I want to say on that too, right? I know somebody who lives in DC, and she actually contracts out somebody to come out and mow the lawn. And she would tell you she's had maybe 4 or 5 different contractors come out to do that. None of them show up when they show up. None of them, or they don't show up on time. They don't pick up the grass, and she's paying for that service. And then they won't show up when she calls. So it's like, they'll show up when they show up. That's pretty much what it is. And sometimes it'll be, she might be the last one on the list, whatever the case is. But here's this contract that says Tuesday at 3:00, and maybe you can get away with an hour or two because you have that window. Nope. Maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday. And to some people, it's like, well, what does it matter? They'll show up. But okay, if you're paying for a service and grass grows in about a week and you can cut it every week, well, if they show up on Thursday, then they show back up on Tuesday, they're not really taking care of the lawn. You can actually kill the grass. So there's a lot of money that could be made if you actually show up on time and you do a good job. It's just that simple. And then the other thing being, like you said, it's not a dying breed or a dying industry. It's just really hard to find people, and it's hard for people to show up and want to do the work. And that's really the state of America right now. And it sucks. It really does. It really hurts. And there's so many people, even at my job, where if somebody made an appointment and I show up on time, they're just bewildered. They're like, oh my God, how many times I've had $1 for every time I showed up for an appointment. And I beat the person that was supposed to be like, you made the appointment. Why did I beat you to your house? It's like, it's crazy to me, but it happens.
Bro, I wanted to talk real quick about what you were saying about lawn care though, because lawn care is a really good way to get started. If you're a kid living in a neighborhood with other people, go out and mow some lawns, rake some leaves, shovel some snow. I mean, there's 10, 12-year-old kids in my neighborhood doing that. And beyond the money, it just gets you in that mindset, that millionaire mindset of there's money out here. I can go get it. I can start this. And you start to make those connections. Your network is your net worth. And if you get tied in with the people in your community, they see you deliver time and time and time again. As soon as you're 18, you want to start a business, those people are going to support you and you can start doing real work for them, making real money. So I like lawn care. I think that's really a good entry way if you want to be a young entrepreneur and make some money.
Do you ever have to relearn something or learn something new? And does that ever affect your experience on the job site?
It does. Honestly, I think it's part of the American mentality is fake it till you make it, right? I mean, so much of the value that people provide here seems to be driven by charisma and how well you can sell yourself. So it's very important to make sure, if you get that down, you check that box, how are you going to deliver on the things that you said? And we're very fortunate as young people to be able to tap into all these resources at the library, online, and specifically YouTube. I mean, if you want to learn how to paint, how to do drywall, how to frame a house, you can learn any skill just by diving deep into YouTube. Don't just watch one video. You got to get yourself in there, take notes and compare what are the common things that everyone is saying. Take note and you can pull it off. I mean, there are times where I sell a service that I haven't done before because I'm confident in myself and my ability to go out and learn how to do it. And I embrace the fact that I might fail. But as long as I set a clear expectation and timeline with the customer that I have an opportunity to fail and still come back and fix it and make it right, that just sets me up for success. So I would say yes. There are times that I don't know. There are times that I have to learn things. And YouTube is free. I mean, you can learn any skill in the world. People are making content on YouTube that you can learn how to do it.
YouTube University.
That's right. That's right.
Have you ever gone over a budget on a job? Sounds like you did.
I tell people sometimes I'm a contractor. And so if I tell you a date or a price, you really shouldn't believe that number. And the reason is there's so many variables that you really can't control them all. I mean, when COVID happened, the price of lumber shot up. You got weather playing into it. When there's so many moving parts, there's only so much that you have control of. And so it's really important to not try and control all those things and to set that expectation. I keep saying it, set that expectation. So let your customer know if you want to start a business, hey, this is what we got. This is what's happened in the past. This is what I'm going to work towards, but this is not set in stone. Things change, things happen. I promise you, I'm going to give my best effort and do the best I can to stick to these things, but make sure you leave room for flexibility because you're going to drive yourself crazy if you set hard numbers, hard deadlines, and you're not able to hit those for reasons that are outside of your control. So yeah, I've definitely gone under budget, and I've always been able to have that conversation with the customer to explain what happened, why. Sometimes I cover that full cost, usually I do, and sometimes it's an unforeseen issue that there's no way I could have accounted for. Then we have to have a different type of discussion and see, how are we going to move forward from here? As long as you build trust and you really have a good relationship and communication, you're going to be able to work through those things.
Oh, wow. I couldn't imagine. Imagine telling me you're going to do this for like 10 grand and then you come back and say, hey, broke a water pipe. It's going to cost an extra $2,000. I'd be like, come on.
Yeah, if I broke a water pipe, that's on me 100%. I'm going to pay for that. But if someone says, hey, I want you to paint this piece of siding for me. And so I take off the siding and the plywood is rotting behind it. And so I'm like, okay, I'll take that off and fix it. And then I see the studs behind it are completely rotted and there's a structural issue. there's no way I could have foreseen that looking from the exterior, just seeing that your piece of siding needs to be painted. And so that's one of those where it's like, hey, this is what I found. Here's some options I think we can take. If you want, I can just put this back upon our initial agreement and just paint the siding, but I don't think that's in your best interest. So, how do you want to proceed here? There's ways that you can set that conversation up so that, you can maintain that trust and follow through on your commitment as well.
Thanks for checking out Chocolate Espresso Podcast. I'm your host, Nuair. I hope you guys enjoyed that content. Feel free to give us feedback. If you know anyone or like to share anyone that you might have in mind, go ahead and hit that comment section. You can also email us at chocolateespressopodcast@gmail.com. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we're going to try to push out as much content as we can every week or every other week.